Are we live? Okay, awesome. So welcome to this live feed with Fearless, and it's kind of like a mini Becoming Fearless episode. We've got Jaya here, who has had a huge impact on my life, and I'm excited to be sitting down talking with her specifically about something that I think was very valuable in my life and changing the way I looked at sexuality, sensuality, and that's her Erotic Blueprints. And if you haven't heard about Jaya, or you haven't heard about her Erotic Blueprints or the erotic types, this is definitely something you want to check out, because it can be a huge game changer around your sex life, which you guys know, the more confident you are with your sex life, the more comfortable you're going to be overall, I think, with women, and just pleasure, just enjoying your life, which is what I believe life is really about. So let's jump right to it. It's amazing to have you here, Jaya, and let's dive right in.
Great.
I am fascinated with your erotic types. I love them. I have used them. I've thought about them a lot. And can you tell me a little bit more about them? Can you dive in? And
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And I love hearing how they've been effective for you, because to me, it was like this discovery that I had in my office. So I've been at this for 2 decades now, and I get to work hands-on with people. So I spend a lot of time with people's bodies. And I started noticing these blueprints over time. And you know how you find something and you don't know if it's going to hit, if it's going to be like that thing. But I had this feeling like there's something really valuable here, and people understanding what turns them on, how they're fed erotically. And what I noticed was the majority of people were not fed. They were starving sexually. And when we tapped into what their blueprint was, we were able to feed them. And then they'd look at me and just go, oh, some people would have tears. And I'm hearing this, just even people discovering what their type is. It's like, there's tears of, wow, I feel so understood. I feel like I'm finally being fed. I feel like somebody gets me. And it was in that discovery that I started going, there's something here, there's something here. And then I started just speaking about it a little bit, like dipping my toes in, and everybody kept going, oh my gosh, these blueprints, these blueprints. And so it took me about 5 years, but I really honed it down to what are these about? What are the positive aspects of each blueprint? What are the shadow sides of each blueprint? How do we feed each one of these blueprints, and really develop this over time, and research with my clients and my students and my lover? You know, he was a big part of it as well. So there are essentially 5 blueprints. Would you like me to run through them?
I would love for you to run through them, and yeah, just jump right in.
Great. So the first one is energetic, and an energetic is somebody who's turned on by space, anticipation, tease, longing. They want to yearn. So I have a lot of energetic in my blueprint. And
So do
for
I.
me, it's that distance and the space between, and that anticipation of the skin meeting or of the kiss, or even I love long distance or unrequited love. Those relationships that I didn't quite get to have are the ones I think about or dream about. And that's part of that. It just turns me on so much to have that longing and yearning for something, that craving for something.
That makes me totally understand why I'm such a high energetics. That's my number one. And because I talk a lot about the tension aspect of things and Fearless, and creating tension and playing with that tension and dancing in the tension, which sounds very similar to exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely. There is a lot of tension in the energetic, and they feel so much, so that there's the tension, but they're feeling more than we think they are. Like a lot of the other blueprints go, still don't understand how they're feeling so much when I'm not touching them.
Yeah.
And so it's in the tension that we are able to actually feel more than when you collapse the energy, and we feel less when this is happening. We feel more when this is happening.
Yes,
So,
yes.
on the shadow side, an energetic is, because they're so sensitive, they can easily short circuit. So if you go in your guys, if you go in too much, too quick, too fast, and you're going to short circuit her if she's an energetic. Her turn on is going to plummet if she's an energetic. So that shadow side is that there's just so much sensitivity that they can turn off, short circuit really quickly, or they can tend to be a little hierarchical, judgmental. I definitely had this in the shadow of my energetic, which is I'm enlightened and my chakras are all aligned. And who are you eating hamburgers? Like I kind of had that judgmental, hierarchical, I'm spiritual, I'm using sex for enlightenment, and therefore I'm better than you.
Yeah.
And I think that that can be definitely some of the shadow thoughts where they're missing out on a connection that could be there because they're stuck in their judgments of others when really they are about love and connection, but they can get trapped in me being better or higher than you because I have energetic superpowers.
And it does kind of feel like superpowers because I feel like now that I've studied your material, I can spot an energetic across the room sometimes. And you can spot the high ones at least, or the mid to high. And
Mm-hmm.
because they're really feeling out the room too. And you can catch each other feeling out that room and or feeling out the space or feeling out how the space feels. And there's this immediate like play with that. And you're right, it can I can get blown out too, where I'm like, I'm kind of burning out on this now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
Attraction with an energetic, I find really interesting because I'm not attracted to people physically. You could be like the hottest guy in the room, but I'm not going to come to you. I'm going to come to the energy in the room. I'm going to come to the other, like the person who I feel an energetic connection to. It does not matter what you look like. And so I frequently will say like, oh yeah, he's kind of hot, like as far as attraction goes, but I'm not
Uh-huh.
attracted to, like, he's got a six pack and whatever and all this stuff, but like what society says is attractive, but I'm not attracted to it because I'm attracted to an energy, not to the physical as much.
Yes, and there was an interesting comment that my girlfriend made recently. Was she called a guy ugly hot, and I think that literally probably plays into what you're talking about. At least
Mhm.
that's how it feels to me.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. Did you have something else you wanted to share there?
So the next one's a sensual. And the sensual is someone who is turned on by all of their senses being ignited. I was just writing a thing about gifts for these blueprints. And for a sensual, it's like you do want to give them the flowers and the chocolate and the things that smell good and the romantic music. Like that is the sensual. And so when we talk about gift giving, even people say, oh, those are the cliche gifts, but those work for that blueprint. They don't work for the other ones, but those are the ones that work because they are ignited by the beautiful flowers. They're ignited by chocolate and it melting in their mouth, and they're ignited by smelling something that is just wonderful. A smell for a sensual woman could go right to their genitals, could
Hmm.
go right there because they're smelling or tasting something so delicious. And so, where an energetic love space, a sensual wants to be close. The sensual wants to cuddle. They want your hands on their body. So, if you are a sensual, I get a lot of guys who say, oh, isn't that a woman? And that is not true at all. What we found, we've had almost 20,000 people now take the online quiz. And what we found is that there are men who are sensual, there are men who are energetic. This myth that men are all just sexual in this kind of one way is really being broken by seeing how the quiz spreads out. And there are plenty of men who are sensual. My partner is one of them. He wants to like slow dance and be all up in my grill, and my energetics kind of like, whoa.
No.
So he's a cuddler. He wants to cuddle, and they're very in their body. They have a very deep sexuality, but it comes from this beauty and sensuality and design.
This is an interesting the way you say that because I feel like I'm actually I'm a huge amount of both. I always say I'm energetic then sensual. So I like to be close. I like to touch. I love to play with touch. I also love to play with energetics. I can burn out on like I can short circuit on the energetic and I can short circuit. I can get too much touch on the sensual, but it takes a lot before I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really interesting. So is that a little is that because I've developed both that I can do that?
You've developed a little of both, and the sensual getting too much of it, that's your energetic short circuit, because the sensual they have a little bit of insatiability around. they
Uh,
could they could have flowers and touch, and like they're kind of, they can be endless in their wanting of closeness.
yeah.
And so I see sensuals and energetics in a relationship together, and like the energetics kind of always running away and the sensuals always trying to get the touch. And so there's this very interesting dynamic that can play where the sensual feels really fed and the energetic is feeling overwhelmed. That
Yes.
happens. And
Yes.
so on the shadow side of the sensual, they often are the ones who get stuck in their head. When they're in their bodies, it is this rich, beautiful sensuality. But when they're stuck in their head, it's like nothing can get them in their body. It's the laundry, it's the kids, it's the work stuff, it's like it's the head running rampant. And for guys, it can often be sexual performance anxiety showing up of, oh, I don't want to ejaculate too quickly, or, oh my goodness, what if I don't get an erection? Like those kinds of thoughts that will just keep you out of your body and defeats the purpose because your mind is rolling around you. They're very controlled by their mind. So if their mind is not present, not in the moment, then that can really affect their sexuality. Sometimes sensuals don't like mess because they like their space very designed. They, the socks or the laundry in the room or messy sexual fluids can be like, not all of them, but some of them really love the fluids and want like get into it. But some of them do. Yeah.
I like so it's I'm love that we're talking about this because I feel like I have a lot of each, and I can feel the shadow side of both in me
Mm.
huge, and I can feel the positive side of both in me huge, and I feel the battle that I have going on between the two. And I think
Uh-huh.
this is why your work really benefited me, really getting into it. And I had such a hard time understanding the energetic at first, and it made me realize that I was such an energetic. I had a hard time understanding it at first. There was like a block to it, like really getting it. And then when I got it, I was like, oh my God, this is what my whole life's about.
Wow.
And that was powerful. Well, what's the next one?
So the next one is a sexual, and the sexual are very simple. They love nudity, genitals. They want to get right to it. And so my primary is energetic, but I've been figuring this out more because my students were really arguing with me. They were like, Jaya, you're a sexual. You're a sexual. Just own it. You're a sexual. You're more sexual than you are energetic. And I figured out that I'm an energetic outside of my relationship. Like if I'm flirting with someone, if I'm attracted to somebody and I don't know them well, I'm very, very energetic in my eroticism. And I have energetic superpowers because I've cultivated that over the years. In my relationship, I am a sexual. And it's because my energetic feels so safe that I just want to go for it. Like the way I initiated sex with my partner was just touching his penis. And my energetic likes the word, like penis or lingam, but my sexual is kind of cringing. Can we cuss on this hangout?
Yes. Oh yeah, go right
Can we
ahead.
say all kinds of naughty words? Okay, so like my sexual wants the word cock. It's direct. It's like good. I like that word. And so it's just interesting to see how my blueprints will interplay as well. I don't have a lot of sensual, or at least I will say I'm developing the sensual. But the sexual for me is the way I initiated sex was I would just grab his cock and say, "Let's have sex. Let's fuck. Let's do
And
it."
and
And
that
that was
works
a
for.
big turnoff for my partner.
I was going to say that doesn't always work for the non-sexual male, right?
Does not work. So he
Yeah.
was just like completely turned off. It's too blatant, too simple, too obvious. And that
Uh-huh.
is a lot of the sexual blueprint is, and there's nothing wrong with the simplicity. Like there's something that I really love and appreciate about, hey, like let's just do it. And I can be like too forward with people who like more mysterious or space or yearning, where I'm just like, hey, I want to do this thing. Let's do it. Like, what's the complication?
Yes.
And so this joy and fun, there's not a lot of shame, there's not a lot of hang up. In the positive side, it's just like, let's do the pleasure, let's get to the orgasm. We love orgasms, we love nudity, we love just the simplicity of intercourse and sex. Penetration is like my favorite thing ever. Like you could skip foreplay for me.
Hmm.
And that's just because in my mind, my body doesn't always like that, but in my mind, you could just skip it all, just go right for the penetration, and that's my turn on. It's all about that. In the shadow side, because it's all about that, and because it gets kind of like I need that, I have to have that. I can rush through sex instead of enjoying a journey to the pleasure. And my partner, who's not a sexual, he's just like, he just doesn't get it. And we have to do this thing where every night when I initiate, if I initiate in the sexual, he kind of laughs at me now because we know this so much. We can laugh at it. Whereas before it was this big point of frustration in our relationship. Now he can go, okay, you can do that. Or, we can kind of negotiate a little bit. Or if he comes to bed and starts snuggling with me, the first thing that happens is my sexual goes, what are we doing? Are we having intercourse? Like, I want to know, are we going to have the intercourse and are we good? I want the certainty. My sexual needs certainty. And so we could laugh about it now. It used to be a huge source of pain for us. But now it's this source of like, he's like, okay, I need to give you certainty. And he'll go, my cock will be inside of you tonight. But I request that first we snuggle and just kind of see where it goes. But I promise the end goal will be that. And so the sexual in its shadow can just be end goal focused. And if they don't have that certainty that that's going to happen, they don't want to play at all. They kind of get like, well, what's the point of getting turned on if I'm not going to have an orgasm, or if I'm not going to have an erection, or if I'm not like, so there's a limited definition of sex that happens, and a sort of obliviousness to other blueprints that can happen in a pure sexual blueprint. And I will say, being a very sexual blueprinted woman, I definitely struggle because I don't want all the complexity. I just want to get to it. I just want to get my orgasm. I just want to kind of get it to that point. And then I'm good and I'm happy. And I could do that every day, 5 times a day.
So that's where teasing, like the sexual hates teasing, the idea that because they think, oh, I'm not going to get anything. And I bet that and you can tell me, I bet the sexual, oftentimes, at least with men, I'm picturing a lot of men out there that are sexuals, they screw sex up for themselves. Because they're so sexual, they push, and kill the energetic, kill the sensual, kill the energy, and then lose the sex that could have easily happened.
Yes. And that's the problem. So Ian and I went through this period where I'm pushing. I'm like always kind of in that wanting, grabbing, I got to push this, I got to get this, I got kind of energy. And he is repelled by that. And that was our game, and not being conscious. This is around when I was starting to see these blueprints, not being conscious that if I just let it unfold, and Ian says it to me all the time. He's like, if you just let it unfold, we'll get there.
Yes.
If you just like snuggle with me and kiss, and we'll get there. I'll get turned on, but you're turning me off by the other way. And so it's interesting because I've been doing this for 20 years. I had all these sex techniques. I'm like, what guy would not want to, like, I know how to do everything with a penis. I know, I have all this skill in my hands. What is wrong with my own partner? And it's just because he didn't care about my technique sexually. He wanted a improvisational dance in the bedroom. And I'm just like, okay, I know this technique. I know this technique. I know this technique. I know this technique. What's the problem? So all the techniques in the world weren't helping me. If I had had a sexual partner, it would have been great help. But in this case, didn't work.
I'm curious, because after you warm him up and you do the dance, then the sexual techniques matter, right?
Then they matter. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. So I'd hate for you to put those to waste. That's an important skill.
It's definitely not. They're definitely not going to waste.
Good. So what's the next one? What do we got going?
Next one is Kinky. And so Kinkies are the people who are turned on by taboo. Now, a lot of people get this kind of mixed up with BDSM. And yes, that's part of the Kinky blueprint. But Kinky can also be anything that's taboo for you. So that doesn't have to look like, I think when people think kink, they think dark dungeons or 50 Shades of Grey or something like that. But what can be kinky can be, look, I've never had sex out of missionary position, and it's really super naughty for me to do doggy style. That could be a kinky. Or kinky could be, I like to psychologically go into fantasy and have a fantasy where I'm surrendering. So it's more of a psychological place that you want to go. Or it's more sensation based, and that could be, I like the feeling of being constricted and having ropes on my body and having that sensation, or the sensation of impact or spanking. But I'm not necessarily diving deeply into BDSM. That, again, that could be, and there's nothing wrong with that. That could absolutely be part of that turn on in the Kinky blueprint. But what I see more often is this psychological aspect of it mixed with this sensation aspect of it and what that looks like. So an example, my partner, Ian, again, his secondary is kinky. And actually kinky is more of an access to his sexual than sensual is. So if I get out ropes, he's a happy, happy, happy camper. Kinky was not at all in my map. Like it just wasn't something, and my energetic would judge it. My energetic would be, what is wrong with those people who like to be hit? Like, how could, like, what's up with that? Like, isn't that abuse? Like, I just couldn't understand it. This was early, long time ago, when I just didn't get it. I would cry. I would be like, I don't understand why these people like pain and, like all of this. I just didn't get it. And so here now I have a partner I've cultivated in my life because I think we attract the things that we need, right? Our blueprint just shows us where we're limited and need to expand. So here I have a partner his access to the sexual blueprint is through Kinky. So I'm learning how to expand that. I'm learning how his turn on can become my turn on. It is now. And he has both the psychological element of fantasy and the element of sensation. So we're utilizing both within his Kinky blueprint to get him to a place where, I mean, if I would want to turn him on, I can just get out the ropes and he's happy.
Nice. I like your redefinition of kinky because it's really any place that you feel, the way you said it, and tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, it's any place that you feel is taboo for you.
Mm-hmm.
That would be kinky.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. So that's that allows, because that whole rope thing for some people might just be way too much.
Right.
Chains, rope, spanking. I heard about a guy that just loved to be he did like to be tied down, but then tickled.
Uh-huh.
And that was his kinky. So I was like, okay, it's an interesting kinky. And it's very simple and it almost seems innocent, really.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice.
That was a punishment for Ian. He doesn't like tickle, so I would tie him down and tickle him if he was bad.
We're getting all of Ian's secrets here.
In that context, so that if I was dominant, we did a project where I dominated him for 40 days and then he dominated me for 40 days. And it was really interesting because the Kinky Blueprint shadow side is shame. And so we spent early in the project just trying to understand why Ian was wired kinky. Like, why did he have these types of turn-ons, these very taboo turn-ons? What was it about it? And it was still seeped in shame, this question of why. Well, why am I like this? He doesn't have any abuse in his history. He didn't have, like, the things that we think are the reasons why somebody would be kinky, or what people have gotten from 50 Shades or anything like that. That's not accurate. Actually, studies have shown that people who are kinky actually have better mental health in many instances and better communication skills and more creativity. So we kept asking this question of why, and we went to this one coach who said, stop asking why and just enjoy it. And that was when things really shifted for both of us, was when we just stopped going, well, why is he like this? And went to, oh, let's just enjoy that he's like this. And that piece of shame that was still running, now he's been clearing and clearing and clearing that shame. And it's just been really fabulous to watch. But that's the deep shadow. Is it can be shame, or the deep shadow is this only thing is my path to turn on. So somebody who has like one thing and it becomes their only way, that can be a challenge. If you're like a single guy and your only way to turn on is to wear a yellow raincoat during sex, that could be challenging, unless of course you find somebody else who loves yellow raincoats. So again, like, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just, if you only have one pathway to arousal, I often say one pathway becomes a rut, becomes a grave. So we want to have lots of different pathways to arousal. And what I find is that the shame and that one pathway get interlinked so intensely in the brain that once we start clearing the shame, it starts clearing and opening up. That can still be a turn on, absolutely. And it starts clearing up and creating other pathways to that arousal.
Yes. And I'm picturing the battle that this poor guy must have trying to find somebody to have sex with that likes wearing a yellow raincoat, especially for the first time. It's got to be a hell of a lot of work. And I know there's actually people like that out there. That's the sad part, even as you crack it as a joke. That are very limited that way. Now there's one more, is that correct, or two more?
There's one more, and that's the shapeshifter.
Yes.
So the shapeshifter is turned on by all of this. So if these were languages, and the energetic is kind of like a beautiful Chinese calligraphy, you're seeing like painted on, it's exotic, it has powers. There's the sensual is like a French. It's like a beautiful, like lilting off of your tongue. Just, you want to make love to it because it's just so rich. And then you've got the sexual, which is like American English. It's just for us, it's like, or German, like a Germanic kind of feel. And then we've got the kinky, which is like a Persian, it has this dark kind of energetic richness to it, mysterious to it. And then we've got the shapeshifter, and the shapeshifter is somebody who is multilingual. So they speak all of the languages fairly well and fairly equally. So we all have a little bit of all the blueprints, but usually we have a primary dominant one. So, if I'm 75% energetic when I'm not in a relationship, but then when I'm in a relationship, I go to 90% sexual. So that it's kind of changes. And then what I've been cultivating is more kinky and more sensual because that's my partner. So I'm cultivating little bits of that. I have little bits of it in me, but it's not like my primary go-to turn on. So everybody's going to have a primary, secondary. They're going to have little bits of all of this. But a true shapeshifter, and people have argued with me, they're like, oh, shapeshifter is not really another type. It's just, but I'm like, shapeshifter is a type, because a true shapeshifter is a person who has cultivated and has the ability to play in every one of them and is equally turned on by all of these. And the shapeshifter in their shadow has often been told they're too much, like their whole life. You want too much, you ask too much, you are too much. And they've shut down aspects of they're the ones I think that starve the most out of all the blueprints, because they need it all. It's not like, oh, I can just play sensual with you. It's, I need 8 arms to play energetic and sensual and kinky and sexual in one session. And they'll judge themselves as being too complicated, being too much, needing too much. And then my reframe on that is, you're not complicated or complex. You're just very erotically sophisticated. And so these are the people who have erotic intelligence in their bodies, and they're very sophisticated in their eroticism. They're like a very fine-tuned vehicle or instrument. And they have a different energy to them than, say, somebody who's an energetic, or somebody who's an energetic that has some of the blueprints. And then when we talk about secondary and primaries, you can be a shapeshifter, but you're an energetic shapeshifter. Or you could be a shapeshifter, but you're a sexual shapeshifter. I was working with one couple and he was a sexual shapeshifter and she's an energetic. So you get this pure energetic who's combined with a partner who's a sexual shapeshifter. Can you imagine what it's like for that energetic? She is overwhelmed 24/7 because he's insatiable. Yeah. It's insatiable. And not only that, but he's approaching everything from sexual, because that's where his main approach comes from. And so the total polar opposite. She's continuously overwhelmed and he is continuously starving and trying. And, she's backing away and he's coming towards.
Yeah.
And so, teaching them how does she play with that shapeshifter? Well, you don't have 8 arms and you do get overwhelmed. So you need a resource, but he has 2 arms. You can get him involved. You can get toys involved. You can have a toy working, doing something while you're doing something else. So there's ways to, I think a lot of people lose hope. They think, oh, we're incompatible, so I should just go find somebody else. But that's not the truth. The truth, my partner and I are would be incompatible. I'm an energetic sexual. I lead from the sexual. He is a sensual kinky, and he leads from sensual mainly. And so we had a lot of breakdown, but what we discovered was there's actually a lot of strength in us having different blueprints. One, because it caused growth for both of us. And he's now moved into becoming a shapeshifter. So he's grown a lot. It's interesting. I'm a shapeshifter in my work because I can speak all languages when I'm working with clients. But in my personal life, I can get very, very in that sexual blueprint. And I would say out of all of them, the sexual is the hardest to expand because of the limited kind of definition. There can be a lot of difficulty expanding out of that. And so I've been dipping my toes in, okay, well, why do I have challenge with the sensual? It's because that's very vulnerable for me. Being in the sensual feels very vulnerable. And so I have to feel a different level of something, heal something in my femininity is what it feels like. So right now I'm in a healing stage around my sensual. And for kinky, I've wired myself to Ian's turn on being a kinky, but I don't have my own kink yet. So they're the places where you're growing continually with these blueprints. And it's such a deep, deep methodology that these types can take you into uncharted territory. My goal is that everybody's a shapeshifter by the end. So that we can speak all the languages and have unlimited, really there's unlimited capacity for erotic play and pleasure. When you look at all these categories, what is possible, it's astounding.
Now, you said something that was really important there. You talked about sexual incompatibility. And would you say that these love languages, these different love languages, or not love languages,
erotic languages, excuse my faux pas there. These erotic languages, would you say that they have saved a lot of relationships that
that just would have broken up if they hadn't understood this and used it to fix that the way they were speaking.
I see it over and over again. We just ran our first course of this back in about 6 months ago. And I got to see a lot more deeply how this was affecting people. And we had story after story, just people taking the quiz. We have people write to us and say, I'm in tears right now. I just now understood why my partner and I aren't connecting. Or I'm in tears right now because I just see how my other relationships didn't work because I didn't have this understanding, nor could I know what to ask for. And so we had one woman in particular, her and her partner had just gotten separate apartments because they were having so much struggle, and they had kids, and they were gonna split. She signed up for the course anyway, thought, oh, I'll get something out of this, signed up for it anyway, went through the course. They're now back together again. And not only that, she's so passionate about this that she wants to teach these blueprints now. So I have story after story. We have a woman, she won our contest. We had like a story contest. She had cancer, and she had just lost her sexuality altogether because she was going through cancer treatment and all of this, and wasn't connecting at all with her husband. They were connected emotionally, but they just didn't have an erotic connection. He was taking care of her, you know, how that whole, when there's an illness, that whole dynamic that starts to happen. And the blueprints helped them regain their sexuality, because now she had a language. Even though physically her body couldn't do things, energetically they could connect, or they could connect sensually. There were other ways that they could connect. And this was a radical transformation for them and their relationship as well. So I could go on and on with all the stories, and they just fill me up so much. It's why I do what I do, is that just inspires me that this is a movement now that's changing people's lives, either single or in relationships. Because so many single people now go, oh, when I'm out on a date, I know what their blueprint is. And I can instantly start talking to them and honoring them in that blueprint.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you next. Since most of our audience is men, single men out there that are having trouble, in their relationships or their sexuality, how would it help them? Do you have anything specific you want to say about that right now?
One of the most important tools, I think, is learning how to feed, speak, heal, and expand these blueprints. So if you're single, one, knowing your own blueprint so that you can communicate with people. Like, just imagine if you don't know who you are erotically, how do you communicate who that is and who you are? And I think so many women really appreciate a man who can go, here's what I like, and have that conversation. I think that that's really awesome. I mean, I know for me, maybe it's my sexual blueprint, but I like it pretty straightforward. But knowing the really important skill of knowing how do I feed an energetic? How do I determine, first of all, like, oh, I'm sitting across from my date and I think she's an energetic. I can teach people how to do that within 5 minutes. So knowing how to see somebody, look at them, hear how they're talking, look at their body language, and know what their blueprint is, and then start to feed them in that blueprint by the words that you use, by the touch that you use, by the way that you even eat, shifting your body language to mirror them. If you get enough skill that you can actually like shift into that's like a shapeshifter skill, right? I'm going to shift in. Oh, that's another shadow of the shapeshifter. They will morph into what the other person wants all the time. And that's one of the reasons why they starve so much. I'm always shape-shifting to be what you want, but I'm never really what I want.
It sounds a lot like the nice guy develops into the shapeshifter in some ways. Maybe, maybe not, but because the nice guy is always trying to please others. The extreme nice guy, the codependent nice guy, is always trying to make everybody else happy, and in that he starts trying to figure other people out all the time, and then that he's always unhappy because he's not getting what he needs.
Yep. Yeah, that's definitely a shapeshifter. And I see it in both energetic and shapeshifter men with the good boy, kind of stuff where they tend to, and a lot of times I do some other work where I help you get in touch with your erotic persona. A lot of times they've disowned all of their primal aspects. So they've disowned the sexual blueprint, or they've disowned the kinky blueprint. They've disowned being dominant. They've disowned the kinky and the sexual blueprint oftentimes. But I see people who wear masks, like, I'm this blueprint, but not really. Like, it's not my true blueprint. My true blueprint is actually much more sexual, or actually much more kinky, but it just wasn't allowed. And because I didn't have that allowance, I couldn't go there. But that's actually their true blueprint. When we start getting in touch with their erotic personas, like, I have an erotic persona that's very sensual, and who's a shapeshifter, and Ian loves her and he'll play with her. I just now developed her in the last like 3 months. And
Yes.
she's the part of me that I disowned that's super feminine, but also very materialistic.
Hmm.
So if I try her on, you know, she's very sensual. She's always touching herself. And she's like, how many camels do you have? If you want to see more, do you want to see more? If you want to
Hmm.
see more of me, then you must give me a camel or a piece of gold or a house, or, you know, like she's a trader for her sexuality, and it's really fun to be in her. But Jaya had excuses about like, oh, sex in the morning isn't that great. She doesn't care. So when I try on this persona, I can have sex any time of the day. And this isn't just for women, this is for men too, like to get in touch with that primal spot. If you really are having trouble with the good boy, what's the part that you've disowned?
That one, and what's the part you've disowned? Because really, as you step into that part, because like I can picture so much of this in my own personal life, and as I step into some of these parts, which I have been more recently, there's so much more satisfaction in my sexual life, in the way I talk to women, the way I approach my life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge gift right there alone.
And it
Um,
doesn't mean that that part's going to take over. You know, I have like fear sometimes of like, or I get this a lot from the men when we start uncovering their primal, and the men are like, I want to have sex parties and I wanted to, you know, like it just all starts pouring out of them once we get in touch with these personas. And I go, well, that part's not going to take over. It just means we're giving it expression. And then we're seeing, well, where does it feel safe to just start to dip your toe in? And is it in when you're playing with seduction? So let's just talk about that for a moment. With each blueprint, seduction is vital and so valuable. And I know you guys talk a lot about seduction. My definition of seduction is not about manipulation. It's about inspiring and motivating. If you
yes,
think about inspiration is like when I'm inspired, I could stay up all night doing something, thinking about something. I get obsessed with it in a good way when I'm inspired about something. And so when you use the blueprints, you actually inspire because you're honoring the person in their language, and they suddenly feel seen, felt, and heard in that. And so one of the things that I tell a lot of men who have this good boy thing is like, when you're seducing, think about you're just honoring another person by actually seeing them for who they are. And then you speak their language and they go, oh my gosh, somebody gets me. And that in itself can be so incredibly healing.
I agree 1,000% on that. I believe that seduction, the way I kind of look at it, is seduction is, and it sounds like it's almost the same thing in different words. It's dancing with somebody in the way they want to be danced with, and creating a dance together of energy back and forth, or movement back and forth, or whatever you two need to move forward, so that you both feel satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a conscious thing. It's not a manipulation. It's a thing that you two almost pretty much agree upon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm glad you said it that way. So tell me, what we talked about single men. Tell me how can this help single men in their lives move forward? What's the next step for them in moving forward to learn more about this stuff?
Well, first and foremost, I tell them to go take the quiz. So I'm sure you guys will put links somewhere
Yes,
to get to the
definitely.
quiz. So they can go take the
For a
quiz,
while,
get the assessment.
since this is live, is there something you can tell them while they're live on right on the air right now, so they can go check it out, and then we can put the link
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. It's Erotic Breakthrough. And
Come on, real
that's where
quick.
they can go to.
Hold on,
And
real
we'll
quick.
put the link. Yeah.
I need you to fix this really
He's going to
quick.
put his link.
Okay,
Okay.
he's
You
gonna
guys
put
have
his
a
link.
link. Okay.
Yes,
So
we
you
have.
guys have a link. So we'll put it up.
Okay, perfect.
So for all of
And
you who are watching live, there's a link somewhere.
okay, I'm also having George fix something really quick so I don't lose you. Look
Okay. Great.
on the screen. Do you see this? Okay, thank
I
you.
love live.
So
I love live when we have little
yes,
things that are
yeah,
fun.
little faux pas. I was about to lose you. There was a problem with the power, so I was having him
Mm.
correct it. So okay, so perfect. So yeah,
So
let's
that would be
definitely go
the
check
first
out the.
thing. Yeah.
So talk about that really quick. So you got basically a quiz that allows them to kind of determine which blueprint they are, correct?
Hmm.
So go ahead, continue from there.
So they get the quiz, they take the quiz, and that will determine, it'll tell you, you'll get an email that'll say, hey, here's what your blueprint is. whitelist us because we are so sexy that we have a little trouble with spam. So make sure you check your spam and your promotions boxes and all that kind of stuff. But we'll send you a little email to just click and say, yes, I want my quiz results. So you'll get your results. And then also what we have is a 4-part video series where you can watch me. So I'm working live. So the first one, like I'm working live with somebody who's an energetic, and you can see me turning him on and doing seduction and playing with the energy. And then I talk about the sexual blueprint, which we have to, keep somewhat PG for Facebook and all that kind of fun stuff. But we went as far as we could go with the sexual. And then today we have a video that just came out that's all about the sensual. So I'm working with a woman and I'm just really feeding her sensual. And then you'll see me working with Ian feeding the kinky. And then our final video is all about compatibility and a shapeshifter. So you'll get that series as just, this is part of our Valentine's and launching and all this fun stuff. So, and then we'll tell you about our 8-week program in there as well. So we are doing our second group of our 8-week program, which we're super, super, super excited about.
Perfect. And so I want to point out for everybody watching, realize how valuable this is. You are getting a live demonstration of each of these types. And we were talking about how you have to dance, or, we talk a lot about I have to dance with someone, and that's the art of seduction, is really dancing. And you get to see the dance, in a sense, played out with each of the types. Do you realize how valuable that is? It's not something talked about. It's not theory. It's something you get to see displayed. So I highly, highly recommend you check this out right away and take the quiz, learn a little bit more. The value this has brought to my life is absolutely huge, especially understanding more about my energetic blueprint and the superpowers the energetics has, which is something that until you get it, you totally won't understand, because it does kind of seem that way. And so get out there and take action now, not later. Take action now and check this out, because I guarantee you won't regret it. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close this up today?
Yeah, I think one of the main things I want your guys to take home is a boost in confidence, that you can learn a lot of sex techniques. They're good for when you get in the bedroom, but this idea of how much it can build confidence when you can go in and know, oh, they're that blueprint, and exactly what it looks like to feed and speak and heal them. And that's why I invite people into the bedroom with me. That's why here I'm broadcasting from a bed, and I like to do live demonstrations. You don't see that a lot. You see a lot of talking head. And for me, the live demonstrations are really where people learn, because we don't get to see people have sex, and we definitely don't get to see people feeding each other's blueprints, because a lot of people who are teaching sex don't talk. They talk to the sexual blueprint for men and the sensual blueprint for women. And I really want to bust myths around that, because what I have discovered is that the majority of men are not sexual and the majority of women are not sensual. And to have a language moving forward will set you apart from the majority of men out there, because they just don't have the language to really feed in a way that honors women in their blueprint.
And I'm wondering that you probably see, at least with women, I don't know with men, that they probably fall into, I'm supposed to be this way, this stereotype. And there's probably a frustration going on inside them, because maybe the woman doesn't want to be a sensual, but she feels like, and she's a sexual, but she feels like if she moves too fast, she's wrong, or she's dirty. And so this is huge, helping to set somebody free in this area.
Absolutely. Or men who wear a sexual mask. I can't tell you how many men who say, oh, but I'm supposed to be this way.
I'm supposed to want to go get women. I'm supposed to want to have sex. Is that how you're saying it?
I'm supposed to want it. I'm supposed to be that, like, the aggressor, or I'm supposed to, like, I had somebody who was like seeing escorts because that's what all the men were doing. But yet it was just bringing up a lot of shame, and a lot, like, that wasn't his blueprint. He was an energetic. That's like you're an energetic needs heart connection, has to have heart connection.
Yes.
Before they go physical.
Yeah, I that makes perfect sense. So I think this is amazing, and I think you're going to help a lot of people with this. And again, I want to encourage everybody to go out and take action right away. And I want to thank you for being on today and looking so beautiful. I love your set. I love the look. I love your
you dress. Like all my cleavage?
Yes, I love the cleavage. I love the little display you did of your sensual earlier. That was awesome. If you guys missed that, you got to go back and definitely check that out. And is there anything you want to add in closing?
I think we're great. This was a great start. Go watch the videos because they're
Go watch the
hot.
videos. Yes, definitely. She's hot, they're hot, and you're going to learn a lot by seeing them. So again, thank you for being on today.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for all the work you're doing with men as well.
And by the
Really.
way, Jaya has a ton more stuff besides this that she offers. After you see this, there's such a depth of knowledge in this woman. It's incredible, and I definitely want to have you back on at some point to interview you and talk to you about some stuff that I think my clients would love to hear. So maybe
Would
at a
be my
certain point.
pleasure.
Awesome. So have a beautiful day, and for everybody out there, hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to take action right now, and let us know. Let us know what you think, and we'd love to hear about it. And I'll see you in the next episode. And remember, only the confident really live.
Mwah.